this morning I was working on articles which I intend for distribution at funerals. I use it in plural, meaning that it could be for many funerals. Then I recall the very first printing machine that came to Thailand happened in King Rama IV period. He ordered 2 machines. I think it's from Germany. And he was so kind enough to send one of them to Indonesia. Do you know that? This is part of the history that we should know. Printing became popular during King Rama V period. And one of the things that people like to publish, particularly at funeral, is Dharma book. And maybe the first part of the book would be the biography of the person, of the deceased person. And then the second part would be Dharma book. They believe that to give Dharma at the time of funeral is the best way to dedicate the merit to the deceased. That's how it is believed in our country, and that's how it's practiced. But towards this last 10 years maybe, life is becoming, more difficult for us to continue in this modern lifestyle. The length of chanting for the deceased, usually it would go on for 100 days. In the olden time, if you really have great respect for your parents, it could be 3 years. This is the Chinese. The Chinese would keep the body of their parents for 3 years. Then it shortcut to 1 year before cremation. And then it shortcut to 100 days. I remember 20 years ago when I cremated my mother, we kept her body in this temple for 100 days. And then we moved her body to the temple to be cremated. At least we have some time, to prepare for the book to be distributed at her funeral. But now, people do not have all that time, they couldn't be bothered to keep the body for so long. Usually they would just take, after the death take place, they would remove the dead body to the temple, and maybe they would offer evening chanting which the monks would come and recite Abhidharma for three nights, 3 evenings, and then on the 4th day the body will be cremated. Now during such short period, it is difficult for them to publish anything for the deceased. So now they end up giving maybe a balm, balm or something as a gift for those who come for the funeral. I still think, the idea of giving Dharma book at the cremation time is still good. And to help them, to help those who do not have time, they keep the body only for 3 days. They could not possibly get any books published in time. So I came to an idea of publishing these books for them. Let's say we will start with 5,000 copies. For this particular funeral, we give them 200 copies, sufficient. If it is just ordinary funeral, they would expect so many people, about 200 people who would come for the cremation, and that would be sufficient. So if we publish 5,000, this is for free. We intend to give offering to our people, those who have been ordained with us, their parents passed away, they need some books to give at the funeral. We'll be ready. So I was writing one article for them to go into this book. And this story, I think, I would like to share with you. When the Buddha established Buddhism, he intended the fourfold Buddhist communities, the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasaka, Upasika, monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, to take care of Buddhism with responsibilities. Number 1, to study the teaching. Number 2, to put it into practice. Number 3, to be able to defend. Very important, you keep this in mind. Sometimes we say, people just jump into practice. Practice meaning meditation. That could be, how to say, dangerous if you do not know the teaching, and you could practice on something that is not what the Buddha taught. And for those, there are the other side. On the other side, there are those who really go very heavily in reading the Buddhist text, but without practice. So the story I'm sharing with you is a story of a master who was very well known for his teaching Dharma to his disciples during the Buddha's time, but he himself did not practice. So one day, how to remind him that he should practice. So one day he came to a big function, and the Buddha was presiding over the function. And when the Buddha left, so all the monks who attended that ceremony would line up just to pay respect to the Buddha. So as the Buddha walked past by, he stopped at this master and greeted him, "Oh, empty text master, how are you?" Empty text master. Now he got thinking, why the Buddha called him this? He was concerned, he was concerned. So he knew that he was not practicing, but he was so well versed in the teaching of the Buddha. He could quote any sutra, and he had so many monks disciples, and many of them who have studied with him, now they themselves have become enlightened. Many of his own disciples became arahat, but not himself. He was only a master who knew well of the Dharma. So he went to his disciples. Now they become already enlightened, and he asked if his disciples would teach him how to be enlightened, how to free himself from the suffering, from the bondage of suffering. These enlightened monks knew of how this master was so arrogant in his teaching. They wouldn't dare. None of them would dare to teach him. So they said, "Oh, Venerable Master, I don't have paramita enough to teach you." So none of them would guide him for the practice. He came back and he was really upset, so frustrated. He was sitting outside his kuti and he was crying. And then the Deva, the Rukkha Deva, female goddess, one of the goddess, who actually reside in the tree nearby. She came and sat behind him, and she was also crying and weeping. Now he turned around. Why is this woman crying and weeping? So he asked her. She said, "Oh, most venerable, I don't know. I saw you crying, so I thought this crying may be the way to enlightenment." Now he was really put to shame. Just imagine he himself, such a great master. Even this Rukkadeva came to pay respect to him, and whatever he did, she followed him. How sad that I myself do not know that he was thinking that way. I myself could not guide her. And look, when I was sitting there weeping and crying, and she came and joined me in this weeping and crying. He was very frustrated. Then he heard of this Samanera, a novice, a male novice, only seven years old. He was enlightened. A young boy was already enlightened. So he searched and found that this Samanera lived in this particular, on the edge of the forest nearby. So he walked all the way to the Samanera to see this enlightened Samanera. As he approached, the Samanera really paid respect to him, because he knew that this master is such a great master, prepared a seat for him, everything. So when the master sat down, they received the respect that the enlightened Samanera paid to him. Then he told the Samanera, this is what he wanted to learn, to guide him, please guide him for this enlightenment. The Samanera said, "Oh, Master, I don't dare to give you guidance." But he noticed that this master is coming down, letting go of his holding on to atta. Now he has let go somewhat. So the Samanera what to do. So the Samanera, the novice, told him, oh, Venerable Master, there is a pond nearby. Please go and jump in that pond. The master did not wait for second request. He went out and he straight to the pond and he jumped into that pond. The Samanera, the enlightened Samanera, came after him, and before he could stop him, already the master was in the water. So the Samanera went and invited him to please come up. So the master, this is a proof. This is a proof to show that he really let go of himself. He came up, put on dry jivara and came up to the Samanera. The Samanera said, now master, I cannot really teach you. I cannot guide you because you are such a great teacher. But I have nidana, nitan. I have nidana. I have a story. I have a story to tell you. You will understand. You will immediately understand. But there is this ant mole. There is this ant mole, and there is a cuckoo. A cuckoo lives in this ant hole, and there are 6 holes. 6 holes in this ant mole, and this cuckoo goes in and out from these 6 holes. What you do, you close 5 holes and you watch the 6th hole, and that's where you can catch this cuckoo. The master understood right away, and he went back very grateful to the Samanera, went back to his kuti and practiced well enough, and soon he was enlightened. So this story I tell my audience to remind them that to study the Buddhist text alone is not sufficient. You need to practice. It has to go hand in hand. Only when you put the teaching into practice, only then you can confirm the teaching. Only then you can teach others that, look, if you do this, this is the result. You yourself can be a good salesperson because you yourself have experience. You have tested out the product of this company. That is enlightenment. So Putta Barisat is company. Yeah? This Buddhist company, the product is of this particular Buddhist company is enlightenment. So therefore, enlightenment must be a statement that each one of us need to make. So the importance between studying the Buddhist text and putting into practice is very important, and we need to balance out this. This was one of the articles I wrote in this book that will be distributed at the funerals. So I hope that you enjoy the story, and I hope that it is a reminder for each one of us that it is not sufficient that we are good scholar, very well versed in all the Tripitaka, all the 3 baskets, all the sutras, but we need to put those teachings in our practice also. Thank you.
Buddhang saranam gacchami, Dhammang saranam gacchami.